Hello, everybody. Roy Settings here. Co-host is Psychos Platters, Paul. Really appreciate you joining, Paul. This ought to be a fun show. I want to welcome everyone to the show. We're going to be talking about the death of Jimi Hendrix and three of the main conspiracy theories about the death of Jimi Hendrix. Okay, and I'm really looking forward to this show. I'm a huge Jimi Hendrix fan. He's been my number one ever since I was in high school. About a sophomore, I think. All right. I'll never forget the story. I was listening to the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and my sister walked in my room and goes, "Is that Jimi Hendrix?" I go, "Yeah." You don't like him? And she goes, "Well, no, but do you know what he does on stage?" Well, yeah, I play the guitar and sing. She goes, "No, he rubs his thingy on the microphone pole while he's performing." I went, "I don't even want to hear this." I went back into my room and continued listening. And about 45 minutes later, I came out into the hallway, was confronted by my mother, and she goes, "Is it true what Donna says?" I go, "I don't know." I don't care even. I just love the guy's guitar playing. I love his music. We've been joined by James Watson. James, thank you very much. The Music Sanctuary and Dr. Rick. Hello, everybody. So we're gonna get into this right now. We're gonna be talking about the three main conspiracy theories surrounding the death of Jimi Hendrix. Okay, so Jimi Hendrix has been dead for 50 years, over 50 years, due to mysterious circumstances. Okay, in a London hotel room. The postmortem of Hendrix's body was inconclusive, causing an explosion of conspiracy theories. Okay, there are only a few facts that we know for sure about the night Hendrix passed. All right. It was concluded that the guitarist had died of asphyxiation from his own vomit due to intoxication on barbiturates. However, the coroner said that, he disputed that. He said Hendrix's death, there was insufficient evidence to say what Hendrix actually died from. So, despite the coroner's findings, it's still commonly believed that choking on his own vomit was Hendrix's cause of death. Well, this can't be ruled out. Monica Daniken, tragically, Monica Daniken, the only other person that was with him that night, his girlfriend, Monica Daniken, tragically died of suicide herself in 1996. So I want to welcome Caitlin Stoddard to the show, Angela, of course, Jeff Davidson. We're going to be talking about the three primary theories on Jimi Hendrix's death, above and beyond the most known, the asphyxiation on his own vomit due to alcohol and barbiturate. Okay, so let's get that started right this moment. All right, we're going to explore theory number one. Okay, and that's linked to his manager, Mike Jeffrey. Before becoming, and there's a pretty interesting story here, a couple of them actually in this one. This will be the longest of these theories, okay? Mike Jeffrey had been a covert op for British intelligence, according to one of his original clients, Eric Burden of Eric Burden and the Animals. Mike Jeffrey also managed Eric Burden and the Animals. Okay, Jeffrey often boasted of his 007 escapades during the Cold War, staging assassinations in Greece, torturing KGB agents, blowing up Russian Egyptian bases in Egypt, in the Suez. Okay, the Animal singer, who became a really close friend with Jimi Hendrix, took these stories as drunken tall tales until one morning the former M16 agent invited him out to the harbor in London, where the U.S. Seventh Fleet was tied up, and the manager emerged from the water in scuba gear, and he held up a black box showing Eric Burden the black box. He flipped the switch. There was a huge underwater explosion in the harbor. The whole harbor was rocked by an underwater explosion. And here's Michael Jeffries, the manager that had caused this explosion. was doing some undercover stuff. Okay, so Burden wrote in his memoir, Jeffries was charming, attractive, sometimes a riot to be around. Jeffrey had made this. Now, this is a good story right here. This will blow your mind. Jeffrey had made the transition from espionage to rock and roll by studying under the Al Capone of pop. Don Arden, also known as the English Godfather. uh, Arden, Sharon Osbourne's father, okay? The godfather of English, managers was Sharon Osbourne's father, who married Ozzy Osbourne and manages Ozzy, okay? He was known for his old-fashioned business methods, including bribery, blackmail, assault, kidnapping. Jeffrey proved his mettle against his mentor when he stole the animals away from him without losing life or limb. Okay, so Arden was managing the Eric Burdon and the animals, and Jeffrey actually stole them away and became their manager. So that's pretty fascinating that he got away with that. This guy sounds like he was a pretty tough customer. Okay, so the retired spy Michael Jeffrey parlayed his M16 experience to become a rock and roll Dr. No. And I think we're all familiar with the James Bond 007 movie, Dr. No. Okay. His own mob sprang up around him, Burton wrote. His main enforcer was the Turk, a nasty bastard, according to Eric Burton, whose tools of choice was an axe and two highly trained German shepherds. The singer went on to describe how Jeffrey burnt down his own club Marimba for the insurance money, and then he absconded with all the animals money, the band the animals. He took all their money and disappeared. Okay, so anyway, this was not a very nice guy, and he got a hold of Hendrix and the Hendrix experience. Okay, and the worst is really yet to come. So in the fall of 1966, the Animals ex-bassist Chas Chandler, who had moved on to managing bands, flew Hendrix to London and introduced him to Michael Jeffrey, who is now managing the Animals. The two co-managed the guitarist and helped assemble the band The Experience. Okay, Mitch Mitchell and Noel Redding on bass, Mitch Mitchell on drums. Great session musicians. Okay, several years later, Chas and Jimmy became estranged. Chas Chandler, and the window of opportunity opened for Michael Jeffries to kind of scoop in and just take complete control of Jimi Hendrix and The Experience. Okay, in his own memoir, bassist for The Experience, Noel Redding, described Jeffrey's fondness for guns, throwing knives, electric bugging devices, and roadie spies. So he had spies keeping track of everything Hendrix was doing when he wasn't around. Okay. As for his financial skills, to discourage frivolous lawsuits, Jeffries, the ex-spy, kept all his business records in Russian. So what do you think about that, Psychos? Paul?
That only half of that have I ever heard, and that is just crazy. I did not know about the Don Arden connection. Oh my God!
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Crazy.
So Jeffries toured Jimmy and the Experience. I'm sorry, relentlessly after Monterey Pop in 1967. By 1969, the guitarist was earning $100,000 per gig. Hendrix was earning $100,000 per gig, but was too exhausted and drugged out to realize that he was virtually broke, while Jeffries was a multi-millionaire. It sounds like the old boxing promoters, doesn't it? Well, Jeffrey was a multi-millionaire with offshore numbered bank accounts. Okay. I mean, between the Animals and the Experience. Okay. At last, burnout on touring, Jimmy told his manager he was disbanding the Experience. No sooner did he reveal his intentions than he was busted for heroin possession in Toronto. And he came to suspect that Jeffrey had set him up in the hope that he would need money so badly he'd keep the Experience together, continue to be Jeffrey's cash cow, so he'd have money to pay his legal bills, because everything he'd made so far has been stolen by Jeffries and put in offshore banks. Okay, so 4 months after that, 4 months after that, right after performing at Woodstock, Hendrix was kidnapped at gunpoint. kidnapped at gunpoint, held for several days, and then rescued in a dramatic shootout at his Woodstock compound. Had you heard that story before? Has anybody in the chat heard that Jimi Hendrix was kidnapped, from his Woodstock compound, and there was a shootout where he was released? Hey, Dusty Spins, my brother. Anybody want to join us? I'll just throw a link up right here. Just talking about Jimbo Hendrix. And there is a link if anybody else wants to pop on. Okay, so Woodstock, okay, soon he became a suspect. Soon he came to suspect, that his manager was behind that intimidation too, the shootout and the kidnapping at the compound. Okay, so still refusing to surrender to Jeffrey and revive his golden goose, the experience was his golden goose, Jimi Hendrix and the Experience. Okay, Jimmy founded the Band of Gypsies, and their premier Madison Square Garden gig in January of 1970, Jimmy collapsed on stage after only a few songs. Buddy Miles insisted he had seen Jeffrey slip Jimi Hendrix 2 bad tabs of acid. Okay, he didn't want Jimmy playing in an all-black band, the Gypsies drummer declared. One of the biggest reasons why Jimmy is dead is because of that guy. Okay, so he's a real strong contender for murdering Jimi Hendrix so far. Okay, so late that summer, Hendrix escaped New York for London, telling his friend and future biographer Sharon Lawrence, "Lately, I've been thinking I'm circled by wolves." Hey, we got Hop Frog here, Dusty Spins, Eric Schultz. How you guys doing? Okay, we're going through the first conspiracy about Jimi Hendrix's death, above and beyond the the usually regarded asphyxiation on alcohol due to barbiturates and alcohol mixed. Okay, but okay, by this time, terrified of Jeffrey, the star was in secret negotiations with Miles Davis manager Alan Douglas. Hearing through one of his informants, see, Jeffrey's, like I said before, had spies. They were roadies and stuff for Jimmy's band, and they reported back everything to Jeffrey's. Okay, hearing that one of his informants in Jimmy's entourage of hearing from one of his informants about the possible defection, Jeffrey accused Douglas of trying to steal his artist. Okay, after his Isle of Wight performance, Jimmy was laying low in London, trying to avoid Jeffries, who had followed him there. Meanwhile, he finalized a new management deal with Douglas. On the morning of September 17th, Douglas phoned Hendrix' New York lawyers, informing them that he would be relieving Jeffrey of his management duties, meaning not only would Jeffrey lose his cash cow, his nemesis Douglas would be taking over the books, discovering his embezzlement, mismanagement over the years, meaning the end of Jeffrey's career, if not imprisonment. Okay, we've got a little bit more on Jeffries, and we're going to move to conspiracy number 2. Jeffries, like I said, this is the longest one because there's so many interesting stuff here with his former intelligence job and stuff like that. Okay, so the next morning, an ambulance was called by an unidentified party, screamed to the hotel where Hendrix was staying in London with his girlfriend, Monica Danneman. The paramedics found the door wide open, the flat abandoned, and a body on the bed covered in vomit. Okay. Dr. John Bannister, the physician on duty at the hospital when the ambulance arrived, later testified Jimi Hendrix had been dead for some time. Red wine was coming out of his nose and out of his mouth. It was horrific, said the doctor. He described how he tried to clear the singer's windpipe with an 18-inch long metal sucker, slide it down the windpipe and try to suck all the fluids out. But finally gave up due to the inexhaustible amount of volume of fluid that was in his lungs. Okay, someone apparently poured red wine down Jimmy's throat to intentionally cause asphyxiation. After first causing barbiturate intoxication, Dr. Bannister concluded, without the ability to cough, he was easily drowned. Waterboarding and forced ingestion were commonly used by the M16 agents, which Michael Jeffries had been one of during the Cold War. It was a preferred interrogation or assassination technique because it didn't leave any marks on the body. Okay, so almost no alcohol was found in Hendrix's blood. Moreover, friends stated that he didn't drink red wine. Hey, we can all drink something what we're other than what we're used to. I mean, that happens, but his friend said he didn't drink red wine. So to have that much in him actually lends credence to the fact that somebody was pouring it down his throat into his windpipe and stuff after he was out. The coroner listed the cause of death as inhalation of vomit followed by barbiturate intoxication. As for the cause of this fatal condition itself, the pathologist left an open verdict, okay, as to how it actually happened. Okay, so the paramedics, doctors, hospital staff did not learn that the victim was Jimi Hendrix until later on. Okay, to them, he just seemed to be another case of an anonymous black man ODing. Within hours of his death, all the hotel rooms and pads in London as well as in New York had been turned over. Clothes, instruments, writings, drugs, everything had been taken out of all the places he'd lived. Okay, everything vanished. Okay, everything vanished. In his 2009, okay, one of the roadies, who was probably a spy, wrote a book in 2009 titled Rock Roadie. Okay, his name was James Wright. He wrote that Jeffrey, his employer, confessed to the murder in 1971. That son of a bitch was going to leave me, the manager said. If I lost him, I'd lose everything. Now, is this just a guy, years after the fact, trying to make money on a book? I mean, there's got to be some sensationalism. Or is this the truth? He's saying Jeffrey told him he murdered Hendrix. Okay, so instead, okay, so it's like he's going to leave me, the manager said. If I lost him, I'd lose everything. Instead, Michael Jeffries gained a fortune. His management contract was renewed by default. He reaped the immense profits of all the posthumous record sales up to a point, and he collected a $2 million insurance policy he'd taken out on Jimi Hendrix. I mean, if that doesn't blow your fucking mind, I mean, it's blowing my mind, and I've read through this about 5 times. Michael Jeffries reportedly perished in a mysterious plane crash in 1973, but his remains were never found. Eric Burden and Noel Redding, the bassist for the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and others believe he may have checked his luggage in at the airport and then slipped away during the boarding process. I can see how that can easily happen. Jeffrey was due in London court that very next day to defend himself in several huge lawsuits relating to his embezzlement, money laundering, and fraud. Okay? And so he disappeared the day before he was supposed to show up in court and defend himself of all those things. Okay, so Hendrix had found a new manager, Alan Douglas, informed Jeffrey about his decision to leave him. And so, well, you heard the rest of that part of it. Okay, so now we're going to leave our friend Michael Jeffries, but we're going to talk about conspiracy theory number 2. Now, I want to say before we talk about this, that this was the conspiracy theory that I personally heard about most of my life, and the one that I found very, very plausible because, folks, I was part of that counterculture. I lived this in real time. I was a fan of Hendrix as a sophomore. We grew our hair long. We smoked pot. We were long-haired, leaping gnomes, and we were what was called. The government became not a group of Republicans or Democrats. They became the establishment. Okay, and we became their nemesis. Okay, they hated us, and we hated them back even more so. Okay, and there was all kinds of protests taking place. You had all the Vietnam War protests. You had the, Cesar Chavez and the Latino farm worker protest. You had women's protests. You had the Black civil rights protests led by Martin Luther King. I mean, the country was practically burning, and they were looking at us growing our hair long and getting high and stuff as everything they hated. Okay, so now I'll get into this one that I'm a little closer to. And this one's called. This theory is that the FBI killed Jimi Hendrix. Okay, the guitarist had made comments supporting the Black Panthers movement, which had put him on the FBI's radar screen, and as an influential Black voice who could speak to young people. It's alleged rather that they murdered Jimi Hendrix. Okay, Jimmy's political activism went well beyond his songs like Machine Gun or Straight Ahead or the Star Spangled Banner. He funded a campaign with Abby Hoffman. Now, Abby Hoffman, what the word I was looking for a little while ago, or the term was counterculture. We growing our hair long, getting high, listening to this music. We were the counterculture. The government was the establishment. And like I said before, they hated us. We hated them back. Okay. Abby Hoffman was a huge leader in the counterculture. Okay. Him and the Yippies. Hendrix was funding this campaign where Abby Hoffman and the Yippies would mail a joint to every U.S. senator and congressman so they could smoke what he'd been passing laws against. And the reason why that's significant is, the government, Richard Nixon and all of them, the cronies, they all knew that the Abby Hoffmans, the Yippies, the hippies, they all smoked weed. But there wasn't a real serious, smoking weed wasn't a real serious offense back then. So they decided that they would classify it with heroin. They could bust the Abby Hoffman and all these counterculture leaders and put them in prison and get rid of them. And that's why to this day, marijuana, even though I could call a dispensary, go to a dispensary or call somebody and they would deliver pot to my house here in California and many other states, to this day, federal law is still classified with heroin. Okay. So this is where Jimmy was getting in trouble with the FBI. He financed the campaign to send every senator and congressman a joint to smoke. Okay. He was quoted in Rolling Stone as being sympathetic to the cause of the Black Panthers. In fact, he gave them thousands of dollars, okay, to the point where some say the Panthers were actually extorting him at that point. And some of the concerts that we did in cities where the Black Panther had, a lot of control, they say the Panthers would just go take all the money from the gate and just steal it all. So as the story goes on, the counterculture versus the establishment, May 4th, 1970, who could forget the famous Crosby, Stills, and Nash song, Ohio? 4 students were shot to death at Kent State University, 14 others were shot and injured as part of a major crackdown on anti-war protests across the country. FBI provocateurs encouraged violent protests that gave the National Guard an excuse to use tear gas, billy clubs, guns, even freaking fucking tanks and students. The fact that Jimi Hendrix died a few months later, followed closely by Jim Morrison and Janis Joplin, who I've heard similar rumors about. They were spokeswomen for the counterculture. People listened to them. The youth listened to them. And I'd had rumors that all 3 of them were murdered, to be perfectly honest with you. Whether any of that's perfectly true, I have no idea. But it was more than just a coincidence. Today it's a matter of public records that the Panthers, the Black Panthers, let's see, broke up by infiltrators, provocateurs, and police as a special target of a counterintelligence program, which started in 1956. The program was coordinated by the FBI, was responsible for 2,340 actions against the New Left, including illegal phone taps, drug arrests, burglaries, bombings, and murders. Even before it became public knowledge, people knew that involvement with the Black Panthers or any radical group was inviting trouble. Okay, so Jimi Hendrix got himself this manager Michael Jeffries was bad enough. Then he gets himself involved in all of this this counterculture stuff too. So anyway, we're almost done with theory number two. We can kind of get more involved with the chat. Hey, Michael Nolan, Michael Nolan. Hey, we're going through this, brother. I just put a link up. I'm finishing conspiracy theory number two. I don't know how long we've been there, but love to have you join us. Okay, so shortly before Jimmy died, bass player Billy Cox was given punch spiked with LSD. Cox, who had never taken LSD before, flipped out, forcing Hendrix to cancel the remaining shows on the tour. Before he became a vegetable, Cox went total manic and had visions of people coming to kill him and Jimi Hendrix. So that's another craziness right there. Okay. So final theory, we've covered the manager, Michael Jeffries. Very plausible there. We covered the FBI and all the reasons why they were, watching Hendrix closely. Also believable. They're both believable. So let's see what we think about the third one. For me, it's not as believable, okay? The Mafia bumped off Hendrix. Claims made by conspiracists suggest that organized crime units were allegedly unhappy about Jimmy bringing a drug supply to his Electric Ladyland studios in New York. This was their territory. This was their drug selling turf. And somebody with Jimi Hendrix's popularity and notoriety was going to be bringing drugs with him to New York, his Electric Ladyland studio. So that was kind of the Mafia was clearly pissed off about that. It's actually no concrete argument to support this theory. Monica Danneman, Jimmy's German girlfriend, who called the ambulance when he appeared ill, was sleeping in her apartment. She described what happened to Jimmy the last day of his life. The man said he was okay. Sat him up in the ambulance. I found out later they should have lied him down flat on the flat to let him breathe. It was up like this. They was choking. If they'd lied him down flat, he might have had a better chance. That's what his girlfriend's saying. And these were her barbiturates he was taking. Described what happened. Okay, the nurse said he was okay. They put him in the ambulance. I found out that they should have laid him down. You know what I just said. It was not fatal. The reason he died was because he couldn't get air. She was saying the barbiturates weren't fatal. They're supposed to be very strong barbiturates. According to Monica, the night and morning before he died, he had also smoked some pot, eaten some fish sandwiches, drank a bit of wine, although the pathology report said he had a high level of alcohol in the system, which conflicts what we read earlier. His system allowed the mixture of prescription drugs and alcohol, failed when the ambulance arrived at the hospital. There is no doubt medical attention at the scene, Jimi Hendrix would not have died. I heard she waited 6 hours before she called the ambulance because he was still breathing, although labored and come. Maybe she was afraid she was going to get in trouble, because she was working. But I heard she waited 6 hours to call. Okay. Monica Daniken's prescription of barbiturates much stronger than Jimmy would have been using. Her sleeping pills were supposed to be broken up into quarters. So if Jimmy had taken 3 or 4 of them to help sleep, it would have been a very heavy dosage. Okay. So although people doubt that Jimmy's death was merely a tragic accident as opposed to intentional drug overdose or an assassination plot, excuse me, folks. So anyway, meanwhile, the FBI had been investigating Jimi Hendrix drug habits. They checked out Electric Ladyland studio. So Jimmy was caught between the FBI and the mob in this final year. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I don't know how many people found the poll I put up. Mike's got the spins. I know I've got Paul here, Psycho Splatters. fantastic show. His show's really been growing. Paul's a great guy. He's got interesting stories to tell. I highly recommend everybody go to Paul's channel and subscribe to it. You won't
Thank
be
you. You're too kind.
no, you won't be disappointed. I've never been disappointed. I just put another link up. Michael, you're welcome to jump on. We have a little more time here. It's 7 o'clock, and we've gone through the most accepted cause of Jimi Hendrix's death, the drowning of his own vomit with barbiturates and wine. And then we went through three conspiracy theories. I do have to pull up. I can't see it because I'm on StreamYard and the polls in YouTube. It was supposed to be in the community section. I know, Michael, you did the same thing, but Paul found it, and he voted. He voted. The poll asked, "Was Jimi Hendrix murdered?" And it starts out, "No, he he drowned on his own vomit." Okay, then it goes, "Yes, he was killed by manager Jeff Jeffries. Yes, he was killed by the FBI, or yes, he was killed by the Mafia." So if you guys find that poll, I'd love to see you all enter that poll. It's the first time I've done a poll. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I wanted to put it in the chat, but I had to join some program. It just wasn't. Let me put it this way: it wasn't working out. At least tonight, anyway. Eric Schultz, how you doing, brother? Okay, Mike's got the spin. She gave him the pills. Yes, she did. Michael Nolan, the bottom line. Sound. Can you guys all hear me? You can hear me, Paul, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Michael Nolan, sound. Oh, okay. I'm not sure what that means. Sound, okay. Yeah, the sound is getting weird. Okay, the sound is getting weird, people are saying. Okay, give me a minute here, folks. I do hear a little something in the background. Do you hear that? Yeah, I don't know what that's all about.
I'm not hearing anything. But then again, my heater's running. Wait, but it's over there.
You know what? I have a little electric heater running behind me too. Hello? Yeah, there's something weird in the sound. I heard that echo. Damn it.
I hope it's not me. Once in a blue moon, they say the same thing about me.
I know. Once in a blue moon, they say the same thing about all of us. The sound is choppy. Well, Paul, maybe I could ask you just to cut off for just a second and come right back on.
Yep.
And that way we can see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It's been weird all night, but it's getting worse. Okay, I still hear it. Bizarre. Oh, sorry about that, folks. Has anybody else found the poll? Blue Jay is clearer than the audio. Mike's got the spins. Very good show. Thank you for sharing the great information. Mike, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate that. I'll just take the time right now to say, hey, folks, I am 39 subscribers short of my, milestone of 1,000 subscribers. And it's been a long haul. Last week, my analytics told me I had for every subscriber I had watching my show, I had 2 non-subscribers watching my show. And it used to be 50-50. So I don't know why that happens. I've heard from others that they experience the same thing. But if there's anybody out there that is either watching now or is going to watch later, I get far more views after the show. Last week, the show ended. I had 50 views. Right now, I have, the last time I looked, I should say, I had about 405 views. So I gained, 450 views over the last few days. And that's after the show is over. So I get a lot of people watching later. All my shows, 299 shows, are available at any time you'd like to watch them, spread across about 5 different playlists on my channel. Everything from a live podcast up close and personal, which usually covers shorter pre-recorded music shows. And because I'm a contractor, I have one on construction. I'm a real estate agent. I have one on real estate. I have tours of famous places, why we love the Central Coast. I've got some great little tours. We've toured earthquake capital of the world. We've toured, and that's right out here in Parkfield. We've toured. We've gone to Carmel, and went to Clint Eastwood's ranch for dinner, Mission Ranch, and then went down to the Hog Breath Inn that he owned for 27 years, and hung out and had a great time in there kidding around with the employees. Filmed it all and made a video on it. I have lots of stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. It's not all just music. Although this is my live podcast, the only live podcast I have, I really like to get out there and do those little things around the county and stuff. I've been all over the place filming little short tour type videos. So anyway, yeah, if you're not a subscriber, you're watching now, you're watching later, please do me a favor. It doesn't cost anything. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. You get a one-time notification the show's going to come on. And you go to my channel. I think you're going to find some things that you like. I've got things like how to build a patio cover the right way with over 12,000 views. Why tile roofs leak in valleys, with like 4,000 or 5,000 views. My biggest shows actually have nothing to do with music. But anyway, I appreciate y'all showing up here. Let's see what's going on in the chat. I can see you, but sound is breaking up all choppy. Damn it. Okay, let me try something. Okay, how about now? Can you hear me now?
Now, yeah.
Okay.
Couldn't hear you then.
Right. Well, I switched back to my camera and microphone that's on the top of my monitor and took my headsets off. But I think I'm still hearing that noise. Okay. Jeff Davison. I'm still hearing a strange little noise. The sound seems okay to me. Okay, good. Glad to hear that. Sounds a little better to me. Thank you, Michael. Have a great week, everyone, and give Royce a sub. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. We're going to get there. Nothing ever happens as quickly as I want it to happen. I don't know if anybody else ever experiences that. I see your show's doing well with subscribers, Paul, Psycho's Platter.
Well, thank you very much for bringing that up. Yeah, it's so on the 10th of February, I will have been on YouTube for 13 years.
Oh, no kidding! Wow.
Yeah.
You're almost an original.
I love my people. I do. And I know you love your people. You have such awesome shows. I didn't know about the patio and the roofs and things, but I'm going to have to explore. I'll have to do some deep diving. I've got a little over 700 videos, mostly music related. But if you go way back, you'll see concert clips. I call them mystery clips because YouTube was starting to. The only one that really nailed me, you're gonna laugh. Little River Bands, Warner, Australia. They're the only ones they yanked it. All the rest of the concert clips are up.
Gotcha.
And but yeah, everyone's too kind. Okay, the VC here it can be a very great place. And Royce, you're one. I love when truthfully, you can educate and entertain audiences. I learned things tonight that I didn't know about.
Yeah, no, when you get into these shows, Paul, you start investigating. You learn so much, I know I do.
When I got introduced to Jimi Hendrix, okay, late 70s, I remember we had a very cool FM station in Chicago. And I just remember the opening notes to Are You Experienced with that, that whole back. And I'm like, what and I just shut up and I loved it. And I'm going, holy crap, who is this? And then I found out and I'm like, oh, this could be interesting. And then I start branching out. Now, I'm not a super fan like you are, but the man was a hell of a talent. I think somebody said, and I cannot quite remember the source, that as far as for how he was able to do the things he could do on guitar was because he had longer fingers. And the only other person that was like that was Robert Johnson. And I mean, right then and there. Okay. And the other thing is, I remember in reading, I can't remember what book in the 80s, that was the first time that I heard that Jimi Hendrix and the Monkees tour existed for about a dozen shows in 67. Yeah. I said, oh my God, but that was ballsy back then. Yeah. And so that, in a way, that gave Jimmy more cred, being kicked off the Monkees tour. And I'm just like, this is pretty good. And I would have loved to have seen Jimmy play once.
I know.
I knew someone in McHenry, Illinois. Okay. If I remember correctly, his name was Bill. Bill was in a band in the late 60s. And he pretty much hung around, I hope I'm getting the story right, Greenwich Village, okay, that type of area. But there was a club that Hendrix liked to visit. I mean, there was a lot of them, I guess.
Yeah. I know which one you're talking about. That's where he was kind of discovered. That's when he got hooked up with Chas Chandler, formerly the bassist for Eric Burdon and the Animals, and became his manager initially. And I can't remember the name of that club, but I actually did a show on that, and I also did a show on Hendrix. Pardon me?
The Scene? This just came into my head.
The Scene doesn't sound familiar. I did a show on Hendrix opening for the Monkees too. I have a video on
I'll have to look at that. But how I found out that story, I only met Bill once, okay, because it was his wife that I ended up getting the story from. And she's like, she told me when I went in there one day, she's like, Bill died. He had brain cancer, okay? But those two were together for decades. So she was able to tell me, she goes, did Bill ever show you the photos? And I'm going, what photos? And she's like, that he was in a band that Hendrix popped up and jammed several times over the period of like 6 months. I'm like, no. Wow. She puts these two photos and goes, obviously could see Hendrix. I wish I had copies of these photos because I never saw him before in my life. And she goes, and there's Bill. And I said, oh my God, just to be there on that stage, incredible, man.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Hey, Paul, let me ask you a question. Let's both answer this. I've been asked by Eric Schultz, which theory about Jimmy's death do you think is most plausible? And I started out for the last, 35 to 40 years, I thought the United States government had killed Jimi Hendrix. Just because that whole whole thing that was going on with the counterculture and the establishment and everything that was going down there, and even some of the things I read, everybody.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that his manager was such a terrible guy that was stealing from everybody. He stole all the money from Eric Burden and the Animals Band. He was stealing all Jimmy's money, numbered bank accounts offshore. No Redding, the bassist for the Jimi Hendrix Experience, basically died broke. And here was Jeffries getting all these royalties from the posthumous albums, for a long period of time until he supposedly died in a plane crash. They never found any remains of his. And the day before, he was supposed to go to court for some pretty serious charges.
Yeah.
So I think it's really a tough one for me because I still think the government thing is credible. But after reading all the stuff about Jeffries, it's kind of right now. I would have to say that I would have voted that his manager had him killed.
Yeah.
Although I'm really, really close.
Yeah. The Jeffrey thing is what I, honest to God, believe. Now, I didn't know about half of that story, at least, until that roadie brought that up. And then I started doing, the internet was finally around a lot more. And I could start digging a little and go, oh my, to find out about what you said, previously. Now, as far as for the FBI, but that also wouldn't surprise me either, because
that wouldn't surprise me either. And
John Lennon,
most of my life,
Yeah, John Lennon and what they did to him for a few years, okay, and infiltrating, like you said, the counterculture groups, and then the third one that you stated about the mob, which that one I think is to me the least, but
that's
saying
the weakest one to me, yeah.
Yeah, saying that though, the Mafia, ever since the 1920s, they were involved with the record jobbers, the jukebox companies. Now, the biggest example I can come up with for mob, which is, by the way, an excellent book, Tommy James, and how he got screwed over by Morris Levy. So,
let me make a comment here. Michael Nolan said that Dusty Spin said maybe I need to look to see if I have a tab open. Now, things like that happen often when you accidentally have a tab up of YouTube while you're on StreamYard. You get some weird stuff, echoes and things like that. But I don't have anything up. I strictly have StreamYard up. There's no other tabs open that I can see here. Looking all over the damn place. I could show a couple of pictures that I wanted to show before it's too late.
Oh, please do. That'd be fun.
This was the day. Look at he's pouring tea. This was the day before he died.
Oh, jeez.
That's the picture I used for the show. I thought that was a great picture. I'd never seen that before. Of course, Monterey Pop. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, I ran into the guy. Jimi Hendrix picked up that guitar that he'd been burning and broke it up and threw it off the stage. And I was at a friend of mine's house. He was re-renting this little unit he had in the backyard to a couple of guys that, looked homeless really. And I was standing there talking to one of them. And the guy says to me, do you remember seeing that the footage of Jimi Hendrix and Monterey Pop throwing the guitar, and the guy with the blonde hair and blonde beard, this guy standing there with blonde hair and a blonde beard, leaps up out of the crowd and grabs that guitar? I go, yes, I've seen that a half a dozen times. He goes, well, that was me. I almost dropped dead of a heart attack. This guy's got the guitar. Jimmy went on fire. That's got to be. Wow. I mean, that's retirement right there. And I said, "You're kidding? What'd you do with it?" Well, I still got it. Still down at Rio Grande at my other place. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. I go, try not to act too excited. You know what I mean? But I asked him if he wanted to sell it or get rid of it or trade it for something. Yeah, I'll give you all these guitars back here on my wall. I'll throw in my Blues Deluxe Fender amp. Anyway, so we're talking. He goes, "Oh no, I'm not going to do that." Like, okay, whatever. I sure would like to see it sometime. He goes, well, I'll have it out here. I never did get to see it. I don't think he lives there any longer either. But anyway, I'm kind of bummed about that because, boy, there would have been nothing like getting my hands on that guitar. So anyway, let me catch up on my chatters. Go ahead, Paul. You were saying?
Well, no, that was pretty much, I guess, kind of it though. I like I said, I really think that the one to me that just the Jeffrey thing seems to be the most. And you pretty much laid out the potential evidence and the facts, and I'm like, I did not realize how deep he was into the being the agent and all. I was just
Yeah,
like, wow,
yeah.
insane.
Yeah, no, Eric, I did a show on Jimi Hendrix opening for the Monkees, and what a riot that was. Jimi Hendrix really didn't like the Monkees' music, but they loved his music. One
Yeah.
of them saw him at Monterey Pop, and they saw him someplace else, and they thought it would be a great idea for their own cred to have Jimi Hendrix opening for them. Yeah, of course, because they were kind of here's like the king of psychedelic guitar rock, and they were kind of a put together boys band, made for television. But I will say this: they were in Laurel Canyon, and everybody fucking loved them, and everybody wanted to be their friend. Okay, they were very, very popular with other musicians. They really were, and so Jimi Hendrix people got together with the Monkees people, and they thought it would be good for both groups. And Hendrix didn't really want to do it because it was like, but the rationale was Eric Burden was having trouble getting traction over here, and he joined a tour with a pop band, and he really expanded his audience and blew up. So they thought, well, maybe the same thing will happen with Jimmy. So Jimmy would get up there and play, and he'd go, "Foxy lady," he'd beckon for them to say, chant back, "Foxy lady." Instead, they'd go, "Foxy Davy," and he'd say it again, "Foxy lady." They'd go, "Foxy Davy, we want Davy," and they kept chanting. And this tour was supposed to be something like 27 stops. Here we are on the seventh stop, and the girls are all they would scream through his entire set for the Monkees. And the parents were kind of disgusted because sometimes he looked like he was having sex with his guitar. And they're there with their 12, 13-year-old daughters. So finally they kept screaming, "We want Davy," or whoever. And Jimmy threw the guitar off. He turned around and flipped the audience off, all the parents and little girls, and stomped off the stage and quit the tour on the seventh show. At the seventh show, and I thought that was a really fun video to watch. Okay, Dr. Rick, Cafe Wa. Are you saying that's where Jimmy was playing, as Paul was talking about? You
It
must.
maybe. I'm sorry. I know it's been.
CBGB and Cafe Wa were both popular right there. I did a show on those.
It was 4 or 5 years ago was the last time I talked to Bill's widow. So I know it's been a while. Just to chime in on Hendrix related stuff, which like you said, with Jeffrey really wasn't in the mood for the whole band of gypsies and all that other stuff.
Right.
But the two things that I remember hearing, and I don't know, maybe they were rumors, but what Hendrix wanted to do in 71 or a little bit into the future was, and I know one of them sounds like a huge story, but I want to say it was Carl Palmer that kind of backed it, was that Hendrix wanted to cut an album with ELP. That was one thing.
Oh, okay.
The second one, which I really think would have been really awesome because it would have melded two things, is Miles Davis. Miles Davis and Jimmy enjoyed each other. And they were talking about doing an album together. And I'm like, that would have been minds blown for everybody all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, name one collaboration Jimmy did after he became a superstar. Of course, he played with all kinds of soul bands and stuff prior to that, but it's hard to. I can't think of a single collaboration he did with any other artist. Got to be something out there, but I don't know what it is.
Well, the one that I'm curious about, and you're a bigger fan than I am, obviously, of Hendrix. But I remember that I think the sister's the one that owns, um,
The Hendrix, yeah.
right. Yeah,
Right.
thank you. And according to her,
You're right. The Hendrix family, right?
yeah, that there's nothing left studio wise, which I'm surprised after what, 50 years, and she said the live stuff, right? But I also heard, and you're gonna have to forgive me, I'm tired, I've had a long day, that he was friends with Arthur Lee of Love, and I want to say the False Start LP, you get the one track, but there was more, supposedly, according to Arthur Lee and the guitarist, and that there's at least half an LP's worth of Hendrix with Love. And if that's true, I hope it's not lost. It'd be neat if they found it somewhere.
Exactly.
Stranger things have happened.
Look at this. Look at this, guys. Hop Frog just absolutely nailed it. That's one conspiracy that I hadn't come across. I love it. Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much. I'm just kidding.
That happened in a parallel universe.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, what's crazy is so many famous people have died, and just like with Marilyn Monroe, that Hop Frog had brought up, she's having an affair with the president of the United States, and that's got to be something that FBI's would be worried about, her talking and telling people about that, and people knowing about it. That was back in the day when everybody wasn't into your sex life. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you were a president, prime minister, head of state, people just maybe they assumed it was going to be happening, and they just all let it go, and then whatever. I mean, it's between you and your significant other, really, not the whole world. But I don't know. Enough of all that. Yeah. So there's been those rumors that Marilyn was, fed barbiturates in her sleep and what have you, and overdosed. And who the hell knows, man? I mean, it sounds like some pretty nasty shit took place at one time.
Have you, Royce? I'm sorry, considering that even though I do watch your channel, I do not recall if you touched on these topics before. Have you touched similar to about Jim Morrison and Janis?
No, I have not actually.
That would be
Those
some
very good shows, very good follow-ups. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I'll throw one little bit, and then I'm going to have to get going, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I do too.
This one's a Janis story. Okay. And I'm sorry, guys, I can't remember the source, but supposedly the last person to see Janis alive in that they call it the Riot Hyatt or something. It was a chateau, whatever. Was Bobby Womack. Now, yeah, Bobby Womack supposedly is the one that delivered the final injection, if you will, because supposedly they both did it. And one of the last things that supposedly she said, now, once again, I wish I knew the source, I forgot, is that she really dug him and wanted to work with him and his band down the line. Okay. So the thing is, Bobby Womack, if you go backwards, of course, it was a little suspicious in the whole Sam Cooke thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
Anyways, thank you for having me on. It was enjoyable. I learned a lot.
Good.
And,
Thank you. Thank you.
like I said, sub this guy. He is totally awesome. If you haven't done it, do so, please. I want to see him get to that important milestone, because it is.
Important milestone. Yeah.
I love you guys. You take care.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And
Thank you. Okay. Hey, Angela, this is a really good point, Angela. Whenever somebody's using, drugs at the level that Jimmy was using drugs and getting high, suicide is an option there. You don't hear it. Have you heard that? Have you heard other people talk about Jimmy committing suicide? That's really interesting. For some reason, that it just never even occurred to me for some reason. But now it sounds very plausible, especially with all he was going through and all the stress he was under, being ripped off by his manager and chased around by his manager and all the crazy stuff that was taking place. That's really interesting, Angela. Thanks for bringing that up. Are you going into different theories about what happened to Jim Morrison? Well, you know what? I was actually thinking about. I didn't want to turn this into a 3-hour show, or I even considered including Jim Morrison and Janis Joplin, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, I mean, I've of course, I've read, and we've all seen the movie Jim Morrison, and I've read, and I've done some shows on Jim Morrison, The Doors, a long time ago, like 2 years old, back when I was filming myself with my cell phone on a stand, real bad photography. But anyway, yeah. So I've touched on it, but nothing like what I was doing tonight with Jimmy. But yeah, no, that would be good. That would be good to do a show on them. Yeah, I've done a show on the 2700 Club, which included Jim Morrison and Jimi Hendrix, and I think Janis Joplin. I think they were all 27. NFL game, Rams 20, Lions 24, fourth quarter. That's a close game, folks. Well, I'm gonna skip down through the chat. Just say hi to everybody, Hop Frog and Caitlin and Music Sanctuary. Oh, come on, Detroit. My buddy Hop Frog, how you doing, brother? Hendrix was always creating. Yes, he was. They say you'd go to a party at Hendrix Place. He would be walking around with the Stratocaster strapped on, not plugged in, because he's walking in and out of rooms and partying with people. And as he's walking around chatting with people, he's playing a fucking guitar. I mean, he's like he never put it down. Michael Nolan, yeah. And McCartney died. You know what? Hey, if any of you guys haven't seen that show that Michael Nolan, The Bottom Line, fastest growing YouTube channel, he's like a rocket ship taking off straight up. Okay. What at 32,000+ subscribers? When I first started watching Michael, he had 600. Okay. 32,000+. But he just did a show on the whole Paul is dead thing that took place that, I lived that in real time. I made a comment. I don't know if you read my comment or not on the show, but I lived that in real time, just like you did. And there was constantly clues being put out trying to convince everybody Paul was dead. It was really a trippy time. I mean, God dang. Thanks for putting that up, Michael. I really enjoyed it. Okay, I think it was Sharon Lawrence's book about Jimmy. Okay. Okay, so Angela's referring to the possible Jimi Hendrix suicide, and there was certainly plenty of craziness going on in his life. So who knows, Michael, or he overdosed. Well, yeah, that is okay. Psychos Platters, thank you, Royce. Everyone have a great week. Take care. Hey, Paul, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Okay, Michael Nolan, Night Platters, Dan Goucher. Royce, is next week gonna be death free? Yes, death free next week. Let's find a happy subject. I'm not sure what it's gonna be yet, but yeah, just been too much death here lately. We're not going to talk about anybody dying. There is a sad book called The 27 Club about those from Brian Jones to Amy Winehouse. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That is a very sad book. All that talent. Rams just got a field goal, 23-24 now.
Okay, Eric Schultz. Used record store in 79 had a sticker over Paul on Abbey Road in which they wrote, "Rest in peace." All the Beatles were alive at the time, so it was pretty funny then. Yeah, it would have been funny then. Yeah. Keep the intro, Michael. Yeah, I commented on that too. Dusty Spins. Tonight was definitely informative. Well, thank you, Dusty. Appreciate that. We hope somebody gets something out of these shows. I mean, they do take, time to prepare for research. I mean, I think I start sometimes a week in advance finding stuff and putting it on Word documents, and then you wind up with enough to last 10 hours. Then you got to go through and try to whittle her down a bit so you don't do the last 3 hours by yourself. Okay, thanks, Sanctuary. The poll agrees. So if anybody sees my poll, the poll that I put up that I'm excited to check, and it asks whether you thought Jimi Hendrix was murdered, and then it gives you options of, by who. Was it the FBI? Was it his manager, Michael Jeffrey? So it gives you those options. And then the other one is no, he wasn't murdered. He died of asphyxiation, barbiturates, and alcohol. So anyway, so look for that poll. I can't see it. I'm on StreamYard. It's not a StreamYard poll. It's a YouTube poll. So you guys can see it, but I can't. And I know Psycho said he commented on the poll before he even joined. So please take a look. Look around at your page there that you're watching and see if you can find that poll and answer it, because I'm really, really excited to see the answers. Thanks. The poll agrees. Okay, so anyway, folks, we just ran out of time. And I promised my wife an hour, and I'm 8 minutes over. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. Appreciate each and every one of you. And that's what's going on in Royce's world today. Thank you all so much for being here.